Welcome back. It is time to play in this tournament. It's my first, real game for a while, playing against a 16-20 rated opponent from Crna. E4, I'm going to play E5. And we have the bishop's opening. All right. So I'm going to put my knight on F6. Bishop's opening is kind of tricky. I think this move might be wrong. There is theory here. I'm not sure of it. So I actually have to be very careful here. Now, I'm considering this move. Knight takes pawn. And if the knight takes back, then I can play this move with a fork against the bishop and the knight. Which means I'll win one of those pieces back after having won the pawn. He'll be able to give one of the pieces up for a pawn, so it's pretty even. The other thing to consider in this case is what if he sacrifices the bishop immediately to try and draw my king out, and then can he do something else very dangerous to me there? Either a check, in which case I can drop this knight back, and I'm up material there, or he could give me a check here, and then I guess I could, I could maybe play something like this. I think that should be okay. I think taking the pawn there is actually a move. So I think we can try that. If I'm not sure, I can do something else. If I take and he takes with the knight, I can play d5. And then, let's say he moves his bishop. I then take the knight like this. Is that actually good for me? I'm really not that sure. I'm gonna defer from taking like that, and I'm going to instead play to prevent him from getting d4. I think I'm just gonna play maybe bishop c5. Just playing in a very simple way. Or maybe even bishop e7. Bishop e7 just looking to castle can also be a very practical decision here. Another idea could possibly be to put my bishop up here. Or just develop my knight. A lot of options. I shouldn't spend too much time here. I really shouldn't spend too much time here. But I'm not sure what's best. Probably the critical move is taking the pawn. I'm going to take the pawn. And it might be a mistake from a practical perspective, because this guy, obviously, he's got the white pieces. He's played the bishop's opening. It's his choice of opening. He does come through and take the bishop. I'm committed to this anyway. And we'll see what happens. So he's regathered his material, and he's made my king move. But I have a pawn in the center of the board, and I haven't, really got anything else at the moment, I don't think, to worry about. So yes, his queen can come out. That's definitely something to consider. And what am I going to do about that? So I might want to play something like this. But that way, if he checks me from here, I can just place my bishop here, and I'm somewhat safe. Alternatively, if I play bishop e7, he can put his queen here on h5 and check me here. And that's a little bit annoying. Another option here would be just to move my king out of harm's way so he can't check me at all. But I can always do that after he checks me as well. That's also a possibility. I could play the move h5. h5 would be an interesting move. That way he can't check me here because my rook would take the queen. So after h5, the only check that he actually has is this one. But my king sort of feels a little bit unsafe, which is the whole purpose of the way he's played the opening, is to get my king unsafe. Meanwhile, I have the bishop pair. And if I can get queens off the board, I'm probably happy. Because then my king feels more safe, and I have the bishop pair going into what probably then would be a better endgame. So those are some observations. can I just simply play d5? Can I simply play d5? If he provides a check, I'd just drop my king back here. I'm attacking the knight. And the knight doesn't have a lot of great squares to go to. And I can then try and bring some pieces out to defend myself with. That could be okay. Likewise, if he checks me here, I still run to the same square, although then he would be able to pick this pawn up. So I might just want to defend this pawn. So maybe in fact d6. Or for that matter, if we get another piece out via knight c6. Although this allows the bishop out as well, so maybe somewhat equivalent these moves. So if I play d6, and let's say he checks me here, I think I like that. I'm going to go with d6. I'm going to go with d6 for the moment. If he checks me, I think I'm going to go to g8. That's if he checks me from here or here. Striking in the center makes a lot of sense. While my king is unsafe and there's pieces on the board, trying to open the center does make a lot of sense for him. However, does this give me an opportunity now to get my bishop out? Which means there's no check here anymore. And if he ever checks me here, my bishop can drop back and drive his queen away. So this move activates my bishop with a tempo against this knight. The other thing this move does though for him is it opens up his bishop. And it's not that his bishop needs to move, it's that his knight can now provide a check here. I can't no longer take because the knight will be defended by the bishop. So after that check I'd have to move and things can get a bit scary there. So one thing I could do now is actually bring this bishop, which really doesn't have any other options, here. Which is what I think I'm going to do. Just to reinforce my control of this square. So the knight doesn't have this square anymore to come to. Now if he trades pawns, I think I'm okay with that because I can take back, which I'll do. I think it's more or less forced. And yes, I have an isolated pawn, but now we might get a queen trade, which makes me feel more safe, I believe. He's going to allow a queen trade. He's definitely allowing a queen trade here, which is interesting. So I can take the queen, which means he can't castle. The queens are then off the board. He is attacking this, but I can also pin that knight at that point, which might be an interesting idea. I can pin that knight immediately as well, by the way, by, say, bishop g4. Bishop g4 doesn't fully pin the knight. The knight could actually therefore jump here with a check, and were I to take, he can take back with a check, which I can't actually. I'd have to move my king then, as we've already established, and then my bishop would fall. So I think I'm just going to trade queens, make myself feel a bit safer about everything. I'm now tossing up between this idea, just pinning this knight, which defends my pawn, because at the moment the knight attacks my pawn. So if I can pin the knight, the pawn is defended. So that's one idea. The problem is if I play my bishop here, he can push the pawn forward. And, then if I play this move, trying to keep my bishop on the diagonal, he can also play this move, and he's pushing his pawns towards me. My bishop then drops back here. And keep in mind, he has this check also on the way now. This check is definitely, on the way because he's got 3 pieces coming towards that square. So unless I want to play something like this, he's going to get a check in. But if I do play something like that, then he's going to win this pawn. Okay, so what we might want to do is get this rook out while we can. Because if he gives a check and my king has to drop back, then my rook might become just stuck in the corner. That's an important observation. So I think what might be a good idea is get my rook out with check. Okay, get the rook out with a check. And after that, I'm not so worried about this move, checking me here, because if he does check me, my king can just drop back and my pieces are somewhat coordinated. So because I'm putting my rook here with check, he has to move the king. He doesn't have time to move this pawn. And then after he moves his king, I can probably play something like this to defend the pawn and we'll move on. So I think that's what I'll do. See, is there anything else that I should consider? Again, there is this idea, because that way, if he goes for this check straight away, I can take, although then I give up the bishop pair. When he takes back, I could take the knight and ruin his pawn structure. I'm not sure how relevant that is, so I'm going to try it this way. Let's give the check. Let's give the check. And then we'll think about how we defend this pawn, either with the bishop or with the knight. Alright, so he's moved his king back. I actually have the opportunity to play a check if I want to. Or I can put this bishop here and defend my pawn like that. I think it's probably better to just bring a knight out, defend the pawn. Another option, can I give the pawn away? So let's say I play h6 to just take this square into my own possession. If he takes the pawn, do I have any way to punish that? I don't think so. I don't think so. Putting a rook up somewhere. No, because that also would come with a check. So I think I'm just going to defend with a developing move. And again, if this is played, you know, I'm going to move my king back at that point in time. Now I do have the opportunity to play h6. I can play h6 if I want to take control of this g5 square. So that might be an idea. He's played this move to basically take these two squares away from my knight. So my knight now really only serves the purpose of protecting this pawn. What I would probably like to do is play a move like this and harass this knight. This is the knight that's blockading my pawn. Also, just getting my bishop off the starting blocks would be nice, and maybe then doubling up my rooks on the open file is probably my plan. So what's he going to do, likely, if I play a move like this? He might use this knight or this knight to check me, as we've already established. And at that point, I can play something like this. Moving my king back. His knights don't seem too dangerous to me there. I think that's probably a fine move. Looking to see if there's any particular danger here. I don't think so. It's a little bit worrying that my bishop is undefended, but I don't see a way for him to exploit that fact right now. I am attacking his undefended knight. He needs to deal with that. Okay, now again, if he comes here, I have the option I could take if I wanted, but I think that just helps him advance his other knight. So he moves back. He moves back with an attack on my bishop by the knight. So probably I'm going to move my bishop here, although that then allows him to come here and attack the bishop again. Another option here would be to put my bishop up here or here, which I quite don't mind the look of that, particularly here, because that allows me to threaten this check, which after the king moves would win a rook. So I think that's a pretty reasonable move. I'm actually going to play it because I am low on time. It looks like a very safe position for my bishop. Better than here anyway, and more productive than here because it doesn't block the rook file, it works with the rook to provide a threat. I can always drop back in desperation if I need to, and I can also drop back this way potentially if I need to, although that might be very unsafe because if I come here, he would have this pushing my bishop back further, and when I come here he would have this and my bishop would almost be trapped and certainly would have very limited play. What I can do now is actually push this pawn. Push this pawn forward, attacking this knight. The knight would really kind of have to jump back, and then this knight can jump forward, which is nice. I think I quite like that. Again, you kind of need to be a little bit careful though. Need to be careful, and when you're low on time it's not easy, but basically a passed pawn. See, before this pawn was blockaded. Earlier on, this pawn was blockaded. Now that's what you want to do. You want to blockade an isolated pawn. And with a knight's a great way to do it. That's why I tried to get rid of this knight, so that I'd be able to eventually push this pawn. Because if I can get rid of this pawn is actually, it's an isolated pawn. Technically it's a weakness. If I can get rid of it by, maybe pushing it all the way out the board or trading it for something else, then I get rid of a weakness in my position. Now at the moment, it's also allowing me to improve the position of my knight, possibly jumping up here. We'll see. We'll see where he goes. But it's making him make a decision with this knight that he might not want to make. Now he's probably going to come here, because then he's attacking this pawn twice with, both knights. And what I might have to do there, because it's a check, if I move my king to the defense of this pawn, okay, he's come there. He's attacking the pawn twice. That's a good move. And perhaps demonstrates that I've probably made an error. Probably made an error by pushing this pawn too early and not realizing that by moving the knight away somewhere, he would be attacking it twice. I've only got it defended once, and I don't have the capacity to defend it a second time. But my original plan was this, and it might just be worth going ahead with this plan. Still might be worth going ahead with this plan, centralizing my knight. If he takes the pawn, I do have this move, which is a check, and somewhat forces the king probably to here, and then I can take this pawn, potentially. Not sure how great that really looks, though. Another option here would be to try and double my rooks. Trying to double my rooks can be helpful. I could put a rook here, and then after he takes the pawn with one of the knights, I can take, and he takes with the other knight. And then I could potentially, probably still not do a lot. But if he's going to end up with a knight here, then I don't want to have a rook here where it's being attacked. I'd probably rather put my rooks on this light square. So I'll probably start with that or this, which is the way to go here. I'm not too sure. Not too sure. Do I want to move my king up? Probably not, but possibly. If he takes, I take, he takes. I'm talking about this pawn. Let's see. It's not good that I'm giving this pawn away, but it's not the end of the world. So let's continue playing. Let's double up. We'll see if we can use both rooks to get a rook up here, maybe check the king, and can we even win this rook in the corner? So he's attacking this bishop. That makes a lot of sense. Does make a lot of sense. Now if I do want to come back here, he's still going to have the ability to attack me. And like I said, if I come here, my bishop's going to end up being pretty lame. So I think I'm basically forced back here. Now he's probably going to take this pawn. Fair enough. But his rook's still not great though, is it? His rook's not great. Okay, so what can I do here? What can I do? I can bring my other rook across, maybe even to the e file, so I'm sort of eyeing down his king and preparing something, perhaps, against his pieces. I can take... I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring a rook here. Again, I'm getting low on time. He's got 14.5 minutes. I've been speaking a lot and I've been thinking a lot. Obviously not thinking enough. Okay. So then, how do we proceed from here? How do we proceed? Probably, we can give a check. And if he pushes this pawn forward, I don't see what's great about that for us. We can centralize this knight a little bit. We might want to protect this pawn, because if we move this knight, this pawn will hang, which is not necessarily what we want to do. Okay. Yep, this is a very tough looking position now for me. I could play something like this, because I think otherwise he might want to play a move like this. But the thing is, if I play this... Well, let's play it. I can always defend that pawn again. Okay, so he moves off of that diagonal. That makes a lot of sense. So now I think I'm going to... Well, I'd like to move this, but I can't really. I could play a move like this, and then follow up like this. I think I'm going to put my knight there to start with. Let's centralize the knight, now that it's no longer needed to defend the pawn. My idea is, if I can ever get my knight here, with a nice fork, that would be good. A follow-up idea, you know, if he... Oh, gosh, don't want to pre-move anything like that. If he attacks my knight, at the very least, I have moves. Okay, so he attacks my knight in this manner. And that's fair enough. It's fair enough. But what can I do about this? What can I do about this? I can take this. Then if he takes this, I take this with check. So I think that actually probably works. That's what I'm going to do. I don't think he has time to take this, and because he doesn't have time to take this, I might in fact be able to land this fork. And the reason he can't take this is because I take here with check. So I think the fact that this rook's not really in the game as much as my pieces are at least playing. Okay, so he is going to allow me this check with a fork. Okay, so I think the move here is going to be to take that rook. And now this move does come to mind. He can't take with the knight because the knight's pinned, but he can play this move. He can unfortunately play this move. Then I can play this, and if he takes my bishop, I take that. I think that's actually good for me. So we're going to try this. So we're going to try this. If he takes, he doubles his pawns and he allows further trades at a point in time where I'm actually now up material. Okie doke. Now, on principle, I'm going to put a rook here onto the 7th rank. I'm attacking 2 pawns of his. He gives a check. Which way do I want to go here? It's a big question. This way attacks a pawn. It gets in the way of my pawns though. Do I want to bring my king toward the center? That might be better, but it loses a rook. So it's not really an option. It's either g8 or g6. And of the two, I think we're going to go with g8. It feels a little bit safer, even if it's not quite as good. Okay, he's going to offer a trade. I'm going to take him up on that trade. Now I'm going to get my king back out. Get my king back out. Now, if I play this move, he has to defend the pawn, which he can do in a variety of ways. Fair enough. Now, it might end up as a draw, and that's okay. It's completely okay. I think I want my pawns on the same color squares as his bishop. Not sure what the move is going to be here, but I'm going to play this just to, it looks like a solid move. Okay, he can play that. And now I'll probably play this move is what I'm thinking. Seems like a fair enough move. But no, I'm going to start with this move. And I'm going to move my king into the center. I'll try and hold off on moving these pawns, because it's nice to have flexibility in that regard. So, okay, I'll move back for the moment. Just defend this pawn. He's going to move his king up, most likely. He doesn't do it yet. I'm going to move my king up. In that case. Now, surely he'll... No, he doesn't move his king up. Okay. So here I'll take. I think trades benefit me. Now I'm going to move my king up further, and if he checks me, I'll move my king here. My point is that I'm just protecting this pawn in a way where he can't get to it. So I shouldn't lose this game, even though he's got a pawn majority here. So if he pushes this pawn, I might have to be slightly careful. Now I can get my rook, just push it back here somewhere. But I have to be careful about this pawn at all times. So I can just check him away. But then he might get active with his king. I don't want his king to get active, so how do I want to do this? I just need to be careful that if he checks me, I can always... I'm going to come here. If he checks me, that I can always still defend this pawn. Which I can. I can do that in a variety of ways. Probably the way to do it would be here or here. If he checks me and I come here, he's likely to bring the other one, the other piece further closer in. So here I think again I'm going to trade once. Now I can attack the bishop, or I can actually attack this. Oh no, I can't attack the pawn. Got to be very careful. Cannot attack the pawn. Can attack the bishop though. Let's see what the bishop wants to do. Let's see what the bishop wants to do. Nothing. Okay, because he's checked me. Okay, well I'll move away. As stated earlier. Now he needs to do something with the bishop. There's no further checks. No further check here. Okay. Here I can attack this pawn, but things are very dangerous with his king getting close and his pawn majority here. I might have to end up giving a rook up at some point, we'll see. If he pushes this pawn, I think I do have to take, and then we're going to have to think about what comes next. But to start with, can I take this pawn? He pushes his pawn closer towards promotion. So I'm going to say, no, I can't take that pawn. What if I get my king here first? Let's get my king closer to try and stay within the box of this pawn. So my king can help to ward off. You know, if this pawn decides to move forward, I come here. One good thing is that this bishop is of the wrong color to support the promotion of this pawn. That's very important for me. That's very important for me. So he moves the king. He's attacking this pawn. Now, I cannot give a check still, but I can come here. So even if he takes this pawn, I can take this one, and you know, even if he then takes the other pawn, well, he can't take the other pawn because my rook defends. So, it's very much a close position now. I can come here. I'm threatening this bishop. Threatening the bishop. The bishop's going to have to move. There's nowhere dangerous it can move. The only thing it can attack is this. But it's defended, so that's nice. If this pawn ever moves forward, we're going to trade. Okay. Now, can I take this? No. Should I trade this? Well, maybe. If I do, he takes back. And I move again. What about I play this move? Check. Let's play this move. Check. The king can't move forward. If the king moves back, I can check again for what that's worth. I could take, he takes, I take, he takes, and I come here. I think that's a draw. I can check again though, to start with. Let's check again. Happy to repeat for a minute. If he brings the king back, I'll check him again. Or will I take now? Let's check again. I'm happy to draw by repetition here because I don't think I've got a win. So I would take a draw if he wants. So he comes here this time. So take, he takes, king here is probably again still a draw. Probably again still a draw. Alright, I'm going to check him again here. He moves all the way back this time. That's interesting. So now I'll take, I feel that I somewhat need to. I'm attacking his bishop, so his bishop's going to come there. Now, I probably need to come somewhere like this. My rook is safe on a light square, but I really need to get my king, to dominate this pawn. So now I can take, he takes, and I come here. I'm just still not sure if that's great for me or not. How about I come here, attack the pawn. It's always possible that he'll blunder. It's also possible I'll blunder. But really this should be a draw, you would think. Okay, now I can even put my rook here. If he pushes the pawn, I'll just take twice and we'll call it a draw. So I don't think I have anything better than that. So I'll just make a waiting move here most likely. Actually, I'll move my king across here. So I'm in front of this pawn. I think that's a good place to be. If he moves his king here, I could go check, take the bishop, etc. Just a waiting move now. And if he ever pushes the pawn, I just take twice, is my plan. Okay, now I can cut the king off a little bit further up compared to where it was before. Now that the king's cut off, is there any way for me to get closer? I can go take, and then push, but I don't think that's anything. I'm just going to come here, another little waiting move. Because his bishop cuts my king off, it's a bit annoying. It's very annoying. Yeah, look, it's a draw. I'm going to offer him a draw. Okay, let's come here. Again, just prevent this pawn from moving forward. Take. Okay, another waiting move. We'll see. If he's going to bring his king here, maybe. No. Okay, let's do another waiting move. There you go. It's actually, we've been in this position now a few times. So ended up with a draw there. And it would be interesting to actually go back and see what happened in that game. Did I lose 10 points for that draw? Alright, I've got the white pieces this time. Actually, I want to play, did I already play my, I played e4. I was wanting to try something different. But anyway, here we are. So we've got someone here playing Alekhines defense. How do I want to handle this? This time I'm not going to play into their game, let's say. I think this time I'll try and play in my own way. Now the Alekhines, I probably would rather avoid going into something that they're very comfortable with. So I'm just going to play this, in a normal way, just develop rather than pushing my pawn and becoming far advanced. Okay, so he's going to attack that. I'm going to take. I'll try and play a bit quicker this time around. So I lost quite a few points for that draw, but it doesn't really necessarily matter. Now if he takes here, he's going to ruin my pawn structure. That's something to consider. I could prevent that by bringing my other knight here, then I'm blocking my bishop in. The other thing is I could just get his queen to come out, which is what I'm going to do. Bring his queen out, but I can put a pawn in the center of the board then. He can bring a knight out to attack that pawn. I can, however, defend that pawn always with another pawn. Although what I'm going to want to do is to get castled. So the way to do that, I could also offer a queen trade here, but I think I would rather bring my knight out. If I bring my knight out, I have to be aware that his bishop might land here, and I have to put my bishop here. But then everything looks pretty good, and I'm more or less ready to castle. And then when I'm castled, I can possibly, argue that he's not castled. Not only is he not castled, but his queen is in the center of the board, and both of those things would potentially bode well for me. So he's now saying he wants to castle this way, which makes sense. Now, if that's the case, we're going to have a pawn storm on this side of the board as our primary method of attack. And he's going to want to try and push these pawns. So do I want to play a move like this? If he takes, I take back, and I have a tempo on the queen. I mean, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Can also play this move, but then after he takes and I take, his queen would actually be able to take that pawn. I could play a move like c3. I could play a move like b3, and I could castle. Castle makes sense, so it's probably castle or h3. If h3, he goes bishop h5, then that's probably not great for me, because I'm giving him a hook to work with later, and I'm not necessarily solving any of my other issues. So what else is there? Probably I should just castle. Castle, he plays h5, starts attacking me straight away. It's possibly what he's going to try and do. Not clear to me how to proceed, so let me have a little think. I guess if I play h3, bishop h5, g4, he's going to have to play bishop g6. Then, I don't love that. Can't say I love that. I could also, let's say castle, h5, knight e1. He castles long. If I take twice, he's got a lot of pressure towards my king. How do I put pressure on him in this position? Let's say a4. If he castles a5, probably not. Yeah, I'm not super happy with this position. Maybe b3 is an idea. b3 allows me to start getting my other bishop out via b2. It also prepares ideas like either c4 or maybe bishop c4, supported by the b3 pawn. I think in either of those cases I'm going to need to castle. So I'm going to castle, accepting the fact that we might need to sort of defend this position. We might need to defend this position, because I think he's going to throw his pawns at me. And it sort of seems to me that his pawns are going to, his attacks coming quickly. His attacks seems like it's coming quickly towards me. So he does castle in this direction, somewhat as anticipated. So do I want to proceed with this idea of b3? Maybe. What if he then plays knight d4, attacking this bishop again, and attacking the knight again? I'm not sure I love that, so maybe even c3 should be played, just to take away some squares from his knight. c3 prepares d4 as well. But I think if c3, he's going to want to break in the center straight away. And then if I play this d4 idea, you probably play this move e4. Then I can play knight here, though. We might have a few trades. It's a very dangerous position for me. It's definitely a dangerous position for me. So I need to consider maybe something more full-on, like c4, attacking the queen. I'm not so keen on that idea. There is this idea, like I mentioned before, of knight e1. Knight e1 attacking his bishop. There, the bishop might just come all the way back home. But, that might be acceptable. Then I can put the bishop here and attack the queen. I think I'm going to do that, actually. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play knight e1. Super strange move. Look at my pieces. They're all at the back rank, but I'm trying to get some trades is basically my philosophy here, because his pieces are putting a lot of pressure on me. If I can get rid of his pieces by trading them, that pressure should abate. That's my idea. And, if the bishop doesn't trade, then it has to get off this diagonal, which means it has to go back, maybe to here, but it has to go back somewhere. And if it goes back somewhere, then that also somewhat relieves pressure for me. I'm also giving myself the possibility to attack his queen on the next move, and then possibly, if I want to, take this knight off the board. So basically, seeking trades is my modus operandi at the moment against Cobrex from Spain, Španělska, 1894. So this is going to be a good challenge, this game. So what if he does play here? Then if I attack the queen, he can put the bishop here. But then, I take the bishop, he takes his queen, is now here. I can attack the queen again in a way that allows me to get my bishop out. So I'm getting to develop with a bit of tempo, which is good. So he takes. And that's probably a good move. So I've got really no option. I have to take back. Now he's attacking me here as well. So he's attacking my queen and this pawn. If I just come back, he is keeping me very passive. He's keeping me very passive here. But, it just might be what I have to do. Now, if I give a check from this square, he can attack my queen again, and I'm going to have to come back here anyway. The other option would be maybe to put my queen here. If I put my queen here, then if he ever moves the knight, I can trade queens. So that might actually be favorable for me. So what's he going to do if I play this move? He might have check in that case, but if he plays check, I can take. So that wouldn't work. So anywhere he moves the knight, I get to take the queen. So what if he moves the queen? Could he move the queen somewhere like this? So now he's attacking this pawn again. Maybe, and then if I try and do something like pushing the pawn here to get the knight to move, the knight would move, but this time it would move and discover an attack from the rook against my queen. So that would be something to be very careful of. But, let's look at it more closely. Say he comes here. Let's say I play something like this. And where does he actually move the knight? Wherever he goes, if he goes there, I take it with my queen. So that's not an option. If he goes here, well, my queen can always jump back to, say, c2. Or, for that matter, f3. So I think queen d3 is not such a bad idea here to continue on this philosophy of seeking trades. Again, if he just plays something like this, trying to open up his pieces, c3 hitting that knight, he could attack my queen there, But if he does attack my queen there, persisting in that way, I've got this check. And after that check, he'd have to bring the knight back this way, and he's got a bit of an overextended... I'm going to try this. I'm going to try it. We'll see how we go. Again, I've got half the amount of time this guy has. But I'm trying to play good chess, and if I run out of time playing half decent chess, I'm okay with that. I'd rather that than have lots of time on the board and have lost because of not playing well and not learning anything. But even though we're in a competition here, I don't think I have enough time to really play the whole competition. So I'll probably pull out after this game. So he has played this. I think my idea here is going to be to seek trades. So let's attack this knight. And hopefully it's going to move. We're going to trade off the queens, which does help him develop the rook, to be fair. But I still think it lessens some of the pressure on my position because the queens aren't on the board. My king automatically feels more safe. Now, I would love to move this pawn all the way up here, but he would be able to take that. He's got defended too many times. The problem is if I don't move the pawn, he could actually sit the rook. Not really. He can't really sit the rook on my position because my knight takes that square away from him. So what I might be able to do is a move like this, and then get my bishop out and put a rook here and try to eventually push the pawn all the way up. That's a possibility. Have to be very careful in these kinds of positions. So what if I come here, putting pressure on this pawn? Then if he sits on my position, I take the pawn with a tempo. So by bringing my knight here, I attack the pawn, which is nice. I also allow it for my rook to be able to get into the game with a tempo against this pawn, which is also nice. But I kind of think d3 might be a good move. It's just that the d3 pawn might become weak, because what's going to defend it if not my knight? So that's a slight issue. I can play this move. Then if he plays this, I don't really have the same sort of options as I would here, like the option to take this pawn. If I play knight f3, he could play the very simple move f6. Then can I play this move? Still not, because take, rook can come here. It might be the best option though. It might be the best option. Because otherwise what do I do after d3? Let's say he plays bishop here, for example, or he's probably going to put the bishop here. It's hard to say. Very hard to say. But after this, how do I ever get this pawn up? And if I can't get the pawn up, how do I ever get this bishop out? If I can't get the bishop out, how do I get the rook out? So I'm thinking I might have to play something like d3. Unless I play this, and then play d4, and go for some activity. By which I mean, I play this move, and then on the next move I do play this, even though he can win the pawn. It means I can get some sort of counterplay. I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I kind of have to. He might play this move. He may well play this move. If that's the case, well, I probably have to jump my knight back. Yeah, he does play that move. Obviously not what I wanted, but that's alright. There is this move, but then if I put my knight here, he pushes the pawn forward to here, and now my knight's SOL, which we can't allow. If I come here, he takes multiple times, ends up winning a pawn and destroying my pawn structure. So really there is no option here but to come back, which is not good. This is not a good position for me. Not at all a good position. But you never give up. You never ever give up. Maybe I should have played d3 on the previous move. So he wants to get his knight in here and really use this outpost square, which makes a lot of sense. Now, what I could do is try and play this move. And that's the point of that move is if he takes en passant, I can actually take the knight. If he just jumps the knight in straight away, then it's nowhere near as bad. So that's what I'm going to do. Practically a forced move there. And actually, I think my position looks a lot better now. I'm not so afraid of this move because it doesn't really force anything. And even if he jumps here and I take, he has to take back with the pawn, and that pawn might become weak. My bishop's now able to move, so this is why you never give up. And if you saw the previous stream, I don't even know if it's worked yet because I just did it before this little tournament started, but just because you have a position where you have an advantage, it's very easy to let that advantage go. And I think that's what this guy's just done. I think he's let his advantage slip by playing this, what seemed like a very natural move on the surface, trying to sink the knight into this position, but he's allowed me to play d4 now under favorable conditions because he can't take en passant since the knight is undefended. So he jumps here instead with a check. I have absolutely no option but to move the king, so that sort of makes my life easy. Now he's trying to attack here. Now, how do I proceed from here is a good question. If I take, he can bring pieces out. Why don't I just defend this pawn to start with? That seems pretty reasonable. But even if I defend the pawn, he takes, I take back, and he takes. It's still probably best for me, I think, because I've got two options. One option is to take and allow him to further his development. So that would be the materialistic option, because at least that way I don't immediately lose a pawn. But his bishop here is going to put a lot of pressure on my pawn here, which is difficult to deal with. The other option is I develop my piece and allow him to take a pawn, and after he takes the pawn, and let's say I take back and probably he takes again, I think that's the better idea. I'm going to give him a pawn. Well, not give him a pawn. I'm going to opt for the one where he takes a pawn, but where I'm taking the view that piece activity matters more. Okay. So I'm saying piece activity matters more here. I've got this open file now potentially to work with. So even though it's true that he can win a pawn, at least his bishop is still back here. It's not pressuring me on this square. And putting pressure here. And also, if he wants to take the pawn, he has to take this knight and jump it back, which means I can get a rook to the open file. Piece activity is what I have in compensation for the pawn. Alright, also, if he does take with the knight, I could also consider bringing a rook to the d file and attacking that knight for a second time, once with the bishop, once with the rook. And if the knight moves anywhere, I would be able to take the rook behind it. So it's not actually clear that he can take the pawn anyway. You know, I might be able to play moves like this soon and defend the pawn again, bring my rooks over. He does take, so what happens if I bring a rook here? If I bring a rook here, anywhere he moves the knight would result in me taking the rook. Am I wrong about that? Even if he moves the knight, say, here, great, I take the rook. There's no check. He can't move it with check. If he moves... What's his plan? If I move here, he wants to just defend the knight again. Possibly. Then I can attack the knight again. He can defend it again. That's true. Okay. That's interesting. So is it better for me to provide a check here? Because that would prevent... Would it prevent his bishop from getting here? I'm not too sure about that. Anyway, bringing a rook here could be good. Another alternative would be take the knight, forcing him to take back, and then playing a check, forcing him to deal with the check in some way or other, moving the king or moving the king. Then I can bring this this knight here with a tempo against this rook, and then I can bring another rook over. And I'm a little bit worse, or maybe even a lot worse, but the game goes on. So the alternative is maybe rook here. He has to defend, but then maybe I bring the rook back, pinning this bishop. The threat there is to take. I kind of like that. So this, he brings this here, bishop. I come here. Now he has to move this, but he can. He can then move this back, let's say here. And after take, he can take with the rook. I take, he takes again. Okay. Alright, so... However, if I come here, and he defends, then I play this move. I think that's probably the way to go. Hang on a minute. I think I'm going to play this move. I'm going to play this move, get him to bring his bishop here, and then can I even play this move, attacking the bishop? Perhaps I can, but then the bishop can drop. The thing is, if the bishop comes here, then I take the knight, so he can't take the pawn if I attack him. He has to stay on the diagonal, defending his knight. But then there's this check. Potentially. Or, again, this move. He has to bring the other rook in. Yeah, I like that. Maybe I'll do this first. I think I'm going to do this first. Get him to bring the other rook in. No, I don't want him to bring the other rook in. I need this rook undefended. So let's attack the bishop first. Get it to come back. I think I might be losing the thread here a little bit. What was my idea here? Was it now I can provide a check? If I check him, what's the point? My idea was I think I can play this. No, it's not necessarily good, but it is what it is. Here we are. So he brings another defender, as expected. So now he is ready to take the knight. So I might just have to accept now that this is not as good as what I was hoping for. I could also play this move now, so then when he takes, I can take back with my rook with a check. I can take, he takes, I take, he takes, I take. That's not necessarily very good though. Not great, not great. Yep, not very good. Not very good. Let's see. Let's give a check. See where he goes. Okay, so can I provide another check here? I mean, I guess I can, but what do I achieve in so doing? He can block the check, offering a trade. He's up a pawn, so that would be fine for him. And now I can drop back again. Not super pleased with this. In fact, I'm very unpleased with it. Difficult position now, especially, 12 seconds doesn't really matter. It's not a good position. So he's going to try and push this forward, dislodge my bishop. I need to do something very quickly. Oh, I'm already out of time. Okay, I said I'd rather lose on time than anything else. So that's a draw and a loss so far, which isn't great. All right. Give me an extra drop of coffee. So, kind of got strangled in that game really quickly. I'm going to pull out of the tournament at this point. And we can have a look at the games that were just played. Try and learn something from them. So let's firstly go back to the first game. The first game, that was a draw. Let's sort of remind ourselves what happened in it. It was kind of an interesting game in the sense that I went for this idea of knight takes e4, knowing that if he takes back, I can have this fork on both of his minor pieces. And, this is fine for black. I also knew, though, that... I'll just make sure that this is working well. Yeah, it seems like it's working fine. I also knew that there was a good chance after taking the pawn that I'd be moving into a position where he knew the theory, and that theory would probably begin with bishop takes on f7 with check, which is what happened. So I took, then he took, and at this point I suppose I'm in his comfort zone, not mine. Okay, so I played d3. Computer says it's not a great move. White has an advantage, but not the end of the world. What should I have played instead here? Because technically black is better here. But what's the correct move? According to the computer. Now, I wondered about d5, but I thought that was wrong because of queen h5 check. Computer's not so afraid of queen h5 check. In fact, the computer says this is great for black. Is it king g8 here? King g8 seems fine for black, even though white gets to win this pawn. White doesn't win the pawn because the knight hangs. So that's an oversight on my part. That's what I was afraid of. I was afraid that after d5, this check would arrive, and then I'd have to move the king and lose a pawn. That's what I thought was happening. I lost sight of the fact that I would still be attacking the knight. That's why, in order to defend this pawn, that's why I ended up playing the move d6 instead. Which is fine, white's still better, but it's not the end of the world. It does give white an opportunity to strike out in the center, though. And then, I developed. We had, more development from white. White's actually considerably better here. Considerably better here. But they play the wrong move, and I'm not sure what they should have played here. It doesn't seem like they're so much better. And clearly white doesn't know the theory here because they played definitely the wrong move. I traded, and I'm doing fine. I'm doing absolutely fine here. Develop my piece. Develop my bishop. Brought my bishop up. And then the moment here that this game probably went wrong for me was in pushing this pawn to e5. Now the computer says it's maybe an inaccuracy. It's not the end of the world, and certainly didn't feel like the end of the world, but it did feel like a bit of a mistake. Anyway, I continued on, putting my rooks on an open file. I had to defend my bishop there. Doubled my rooks up, and I'm still doing fine. But I think what I did well here was I just got my pieces active, even after I lost the pawn, keeping my pieces active so that I could create threats. I played this move a5 to try and cut down on his possibilities. I thought he might otherwise like to play this move. He moves his king. I jump my knight into the center. I think that's all pretty fine, really. And then here's where he attacked my knight, and where I had the opportunity to take the knight. Now I think, hopefully I made the right move here. I did. I think that was a nice move. Taking the knight, opening up the possibility of this fork, and exploiting the pin that's against the bishop because I take here with check. So he had to take my bishop and allow this check, which then I could win an exchange And now the position is heavily in my favor. So it's a shame that I didn't end up converting this position. Looking at it again, perhaps a nice move here would have also have been c5. c5 would be a really nice move, I think, because it attacks the bishop. And it might look like white's got two pieces attacking this pawn, but he really doesn't. Because if he's, let's say he takes with the bishop, you take back, it's check, you've taken a bishop for a pawn, and the knight is pinned. It can't take the bishop. So that would have been a nice move. Where does the bishop actually go? If it doesn't want to take the pawn, it has to come somewhere like this. And the moment that occurs is the moment you can play something, I'm not even really sure, but possibly something like this, attacking the bishop. Yeah, that seems fine. Probably better than what I did. What I did in the game actually was bishop g5 check, which is also fine, because it allowed me to then double rooks, ruin his pawn structure a bit, and I am doing better, put the rook on the 7th rank. This is all really good. So at some point, I must have gone wrong. This is all fine though. I think, did I trade rooks here? That probably was a mistake. I think when you're attacking, you want to try and keep pieces on the board, and here I am attacking, so I probably should have tried to not trade somehow, if possible. It's pretty difficult to not trade here. I could move my rook maybe to the 8th rank, and that seems, the computer says that's better. I could also have maybe brought my rook all the way back here, which the computer says is probably also better than what I did. But taking was not that bad, it's just not quite as good. I got my king active. He started pushing his pawns. I tried to get my rook a bit active. I'm still better. And I just made my position solid. And yeah, my position's really good. I've still got a winning advantage. We trade, I've got a winning advantage, my king's active. This is all really good. Good play. Here I trade, that was the mistake. Trading here was a mistake. And I should understand this. If he ever takes the pawn here, let's say I just make a waiting move, maybe something like this to attack this pawn. Okay, he checks me, let's say I come here, now it's his move. If he ever takes the pawn, I take here, now this whole pawn mass is immobilized by my pawn. He can't ever attack this pawn, except with his king, but how's he going to get his king over to attack me? It's going to be very difficult for him. So this would have really taken away any of his counterplay, whereas the way that I did it, actually taking the pawn, allowed him to now have a pawn structure that caused me troubles, and that's why my winning advantage diminished to a draw. From here, okay, I basically respond to the check, and I'm trying to cause him issues, but because he has this pawn majority which is now mobile and progressing towards queendom, I don't have the ability to take the pawn. If I took the pawn here, he would win because he pushes the pawn, and how do I stop it from becoming a queen now? I can't. So that's why I couldn't take the pawn. I instead went king e8. Now if he pushes the pawn, my king can come in and attack the pawn, prevent him from getting a queen. But unfortunately, because I'm tied down to this pawn now, it means I can't advance this majority, even though I have the little bit of extra material. So we ended up trading this pawn for that pawn, and then there was really nothing to do. He couldn't. So what should I have done here? I played the right move, checked him away. Probably here I needed to take. No, I check him. That's fine. So I'm checking him. I actually still have a winning advantage, but taking was wrong. So maybe, what should I have done here? This is, maybe king e6, because if he takes the pawn, I take the bishop, and I'm always in time to prevent the queens. So king e6 here might have been a winning move. If he plays something like this, I also take the bishop. So the question is, what does he do here? If he attacks this pawn, well, no worries, I take here. And now if he pushes this, again, I come back. I'm within the square of this pawn, so if he ever pushes the pawn, no worries, I'm always going to defend its queening square. So that was probably the winning idea that I missed, was king e6. Instead, I took on c5 and we're back to a draw again. Now I've really got no chances to win. I really have no chances to win. All I can do now is try not to lose. I don't think he would have given me any more chances to win. So we just sort of waited for each other here. There was nothing to do, and eventually it was a draw by repetition. I do wonder, though, like in a position like this, if I could have taken, and if that's still a draw. I sort of think it is, because his pawn is too far forward, and let's say I take the opposition. I think that's the right way to do it. Now, if he makes a move like this, I think I just keep opposition. No. So this is the kind of endgame that you need to train with. If he makes a move like this, you probably jump in front of his pawn. What if I jump here and take diagonal opposition? Yep, that's also fine. Okay, what if he pushes the pawn forward? Well, if he pushes the pawn forward, it's all over already. It's a draw. So that would have been also a draw, just taking the opposition. If he steps back, I think I step forward. Could I also step forward this way? Yes. And if he ever steps here, you just take the opposition again. If he ever steps forward like this, you come here. If he ever does this, you step back. If he ever comes here, again, you take the opposition. And eventually, very famous draw. So that was alright. Actually a pretty good game. Maybe a slight inaccuracy, or definitely a missed opportunity to win in the endgame here, particularly with King e6 would have been a really nice move. What do you do as black? You do something like this, then I'm coming in. You do something like this, just waiting. Now there's check. Let's say you move back. Thank you very much. And, you know, yep, this would be great for me. So it was a shame I missed that move. Other than that, yeah, allowing him to activate this pawn majority by taking, that was probably something that really more so happened under time pressure than anything else. I think had I had a bit more longer time to think about this, I would have noticed that him initiating the trade isn't dangerous. Him pushing the pawn forward isn't dangerous. But me trading is dangerous because it gives him a mobile pawn majority over here. So that was a shame. Because the rest of what I did was really good, with the exception of pushing the pawn a little bit too early, the isolated pawn. But because it was an isolated pawn, you know, losing it wasn't the end of the world at all. And I activated my pieces and responded nicely to the inaccuracy that I'd made. So okay, that game was pretty good. And let's just have a look at the second game. The second game I played against a higher rated player. And this one didn't go so well. It didn't feel quite so good, this one. So let's go back to the start. He played the Alekhines. Now I know that really the way to put the Alekhines to its test is to immediately attack the knight. But I don't really know the theory from there. Probably you can play d4 here and you've got a nice center and things are all hunky-dory. So maybe I should have done that, but I thought that's probably the theory he's very used to. You know, he plays this move all the time, obviously. So I thought I'd do something a little bit more passive, but maybe something he faces less often. But obviously he faces it often enough. He knows to strike in the center. We had a trade. I traded again, thinking that, you know, I could castle quickly and maybe exploit the central position of his queen as vulnerable. But as it turned out, his queen was actually pretty well positioned here. After knight f3, bishop g4, bishop e2, and he brought the knight out to c6, saying he wants to castle long. I took a bit of a think before castling. And he castled as well. The position's roughly equal. And I played this rather odd move, knight e1. So an odd move, but I just felt uncomfortable. You know, what else do I do? Maybe I should have played something simple, like d3. d3 might have been a move. I thought he might play a move like this. This is apparently bad because I can take. Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. But, you know, I would think he could play a move like this. And then what am I doing? Maybe I can play my bishop out. You know, yeah, that would have been a better way to play. Just continue playing the game rather than doing something so odd as bringing the knight back. But as it happened, okay, we got a trade, but the trade really benefited him. He got to attack my queen. I played queen d3, which is a bit of a brave move. And after he played this, I attacked the knight and tried to get a queen trade, which I did get. The queen trade, though, still allowed him to further his development, and now my positions really felt dangerous, and I played this move knight f3 without anticipating e4 would follow. But e4 I came back, and he played this move, which made me feel better. And yeah, computer says he's given up a bit of his advantage here, but he's still better even after d4. He jumped in, I moved my king, and he played c5. Now, computer says it's an equal position, and I played pretty well. Whoops. Let's go back a bit. Even though it's an equal position, it was only 8 moves later that I got checkmated. So, oh no, I ran out of time. So he took, I took back, he took again, and here I am in fact better. I thought I might be better. So I played this move, and I've got a better position. He plays this. How do I actually make the most of this though? Yeah, I think I went wrong here. So had I just put the knight here immediately, that was also wrong. What am I supposed to do? Was it the idea I had initially of bringing the rook back to the c file? Yes, it was. I should have brought the rook back to the c file. Now what does he do? He can't move this bishop, which means this is a threat. I've also got this as a threat, so let's just say he brings the other rook over. That would be a big mistake, because I take, and after he takes back, I take here, and I'm winning. So yeah, I did mention this as a good idea, coming here, getting the bishop out, and then coming here. But I think under time pressure, I just forgot that that was my move, and it's a shame. I played this move, which allows him now to have just a better position. There's not really anything I can do anymore. After the trades, the check, trying to keep pieces on the board. But, in this position, it's getting really dire for me. What would I have done here if I had an extra moment to move? It's very difficult, basically. You could consider playing a move like g3. g3, he'd probably play g5. Yeah, it's just not nice. Maybe I could play a move like this. That seems to be bad. Let's think a little bit more about this position. I could double my rooks, but then he can bring a rook down all the way to d8, and that's probably really quite terrible. I play a move like this, he's got check, moving my king away from my rook, so that's bad. So what really went wrong here was I had a chance, a tactical chance, which I missed, which was to pin this bishop, creating threats against both the knight and the bishop, and I missed that chance. But, not bad either. So piece activity was what I went for, because the other option here was I could have taken the pawn. And had I taken the pawn, computer says this is not even half comparable. I assume he takes back with the bishop, or is there something even better? Maybe he takes with the rook. I wouldn't think so. Maybe he's going to take this bishop first. No, what's he going to do? Well, I would have thought he would just take here. Yeah, he's got a lot of pressure on me. I don't feel very comfortable. I can play this, I suppose, but his position's still much better. Why is this so much better? Is it because he brings the rook down, and now this is completely fricked up? Really fricked up. Yeah, everything's ruined here. This is pinned. This is also pinned. This is about to be taken. This is terrible. So it was a good thing that I didn't try and hold on to my pawn. Instead, I played for piece activity. And he played for material, which turned out to be a mistake because of this. He can't move the knight away anywhere because he loses the rook. He has to defend the knight, and in defending the knight, he allows me to get another attack going, now against the bishop and against the knight at the same time. So piece activity is very, very important. All right, so those were a couple of games. It's been absolutely awesome to have this time to relax and play. Thanks for watching. Oh, we've got someone in the chat saying hi. I don't know if you're still there, ex-Squealer, but g'day. That's if you are there, say something again. Sorry, I wasn't focusing on the chat. It's my first time streaming, so I don't know about it. But hope you come back next time, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much. See you again.